3 nights ago, 3 police officers were shot with guns that were brought from outside New York State, brought here with the intention of committing crimes. If you want the 3 best reasons why we should pass these laws, here they are. Officer Juan Pichardo, Officer Michael Rive, Officer Lukasz Kozicki. These are the reasons we want to tighten up our gun laws, so our police officers can defend themselves.
Keeping our children safe from the scourge of gun violence is not a Democratic or Republican principle. It's not a pro-gun principle or an anti-gun principle. This is an issue that all Americans support. There's no political ideology that finds this loss of life acceptable.
Now, both New York senators pushing for stricter gun control, as you heard there over this past weekend, where, as I mentioned, 3 New York City police officers were shot Thursday night in 2 separate incidents. This, of course, coming on the heels of what we saw in Newtown. And yet another shooting in Aurora, Colorado, of all places, this weekend. It has many looking for answers, and as Andrew said, waiting for the next shoe to drop, where there's yet another tragic shooting. Now, some believe it or not, that more guns are the answer. I'm going to take out the crazy fringe debate about arming teachers and lunch ladies and all the rest here. There are people, and I'll admit, this is not to me as crazy an idea, that says school districts around the country should beef up their own security measures. Starting last week, students in the town of Marlboro, New Jersey were greeted back to school by armed guards. Meanwhile, armed police officers have been installed in schools across the country, from North to South Carolina to Tennessee to Florida. And trust me, a lot of other school districts, including the tri-state area, are considering the very same thing. But yet, Ed, I saw a note signed by the superintendents from the immediate area surrounding this region where uniformly they don't want people walking in their schools with guns, even trained law enforcement officials. They said it sends a wrong message. School isn't basically, Fort Knox. A school is a school. What do you think?
Well, look, at the Sandy Hook School, there was the argument being made, if there's someone who knew how to handle a gun there, lives could have been saved. The guy had to shoot his way in through the door. It was clear as antagonistic. If you had someone there, maybe those kids would not have died. On the other hand, I'm not sure having an armed guard in every school is the right message to give to children in all the schools throughout New York State or throughout the country. Maybe a better solution, the cop on the beat stops in a couple times a day. Just in case. And that would be a very natural kind of occurrence, and it's good for kids in school to know the cop on the beat, that kind of thing.
Richard, the example that you cited in New Jersey, to show you how false this debate is, the mayor of that town that started this, the armed guards are going away in a few months. He can't sustain the finances of this program. If we're going to, as a country, go down this foolish road of thinking that we can play cowboy and John Wayne with a law enforcement official in the school, it should at least be, as the chairman said, someone of a police force, at least one officer that's a school officer in each school. So at least we know that there's law enforcement training. You just don't give someone training and using a firearm and think they can handle themselves in a situation like that.
And I'll just tell you, just anecdotally, a neighboring town had an incident in an ice rink where a guy walked in and had a gun in his backpack, and there's debates about motives and all that. Immediately, the neighboring town moved to the next week have armed guards in their schools. It's these kind of things that have caused this kind of reaction.
Armed guards didn't work at Columbine. It didn't stop the shooting there. It's debatable whether it would have worked in Newtown.
I want to stay with you, Andrew, on the subject of guns, but moving to a subject we've talked about quite a bit at this table, which is the decision the Journal News made. Now, LOHUD, which is the online version of the paper, they decided to print in the map that now almost everybody knows about. You see all those red dots in the 3-county area of Westchester, Rockland, Putnam counties. Not only the names, but the locations and addresses of people that had bought legally and gotten handgun permits in New York State. And there has been a hue and cry. The paper has defended their actions. They are legally allowed to have done that. Nobody's arguing the legality of it. but people are saying at the end of the day, there was an expectation of privacy that the paper violated. And people aren't just angry about it, they've made some very ugly threats towards not only the publisher and the managing editor, the reporter who did the story, but other people even unconnected to it. It's opened a window into just how angry this debate can get.
Well, and there's two issues here. Should the paper have done it, and should this information be public? Should the paper have done it? It's public information. That's how they were able to get it. And so I think that debate is a little unusual because it's public. Theoretically, I could have asked the county clerk.
And just one thing, in 2006, they also printed
yes.
the gun owners, but they didn't give the addresses and they didn't give the street locations of these folks.
But again, it's public information, so I could have filed a request to find out gun owners in the county on a private individual level. I'm not really sure what the difference is between that and the newspaper. But my big objection to it is that this is a potentially hazardous material, these guns and these bullets that are being kept in people's homes. And if there was a dry cleaner down the street that was using potentially hazardous chemicals, they would be obligated to notify the public.
Congressman a chance to respond.
I think it was a huge mistake, especially if they want to gain support for sensible gun control laws. To me, this will just rally Second Amendment folks to oppose even sensible laws. The thing that I encountered as a congressman in my 21 years more than any other time was, oh, this is the camel's head under the tent. You always hear that, and you don't vote against something because it's the camel's head under the tent, because anything can lead to something bad. But when it came to gun control, you heard it all the time. They're going to use this and say, you know, this is crazy, and this is just the beginning, and these people really want to do far more than just some sensible laws.
But you know the reaction, and I'll let you jump in a second, Andrew. The people who were screaming the loudest about it, go on the site and find out who's got a gun. And I can tell you, because I happen to live in the immediate area of it, and I have problems with what the paper did too, okay? Everybody, before they send a kid now to somebody's house for a play date, they're going online and they're checking out who's got a gun and who doesn't. I don't know what that says, but for all the folks who are livid about it, they're using this as a resource, even though they could have before, but they're using this as a resource to find out which of their neighbors does and doesn't have it. I don't know what that says, but I think there's a bit of hypocrisy from some folks in this thing.
Here's the part that I don't get. Would somebody out there who is considering buying a gun for home protection not buy it because it might wind up in a database, or it might wind up online?
But you know what, Andrew? The most compelling argument about this thing is, people said, and I think there's some merit, when you find your name in the paper, it's almost always for not a good reason. If you get your name published and printed in the paper, it is almost akin to being on like some sexual offender list.
I would be afraid someone would want to come into my house and steal my gun. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wouldn't want someone to know I had it.
I figured the homes that everybody knew had a gun would be the ones that would be less likely to be broken into. Hence the purchase of the gun.
At least I know where I have you. I just want to do one thing before we go to break. Do you have that video of that recent gun show in Stanford? If we could bring this up. Okay. Can I ask you a question, though, as a proud Connecticut resident? What did you think about the gun show in Stanford over the mayor's objections, and given the proximity to Newtown and all the rest, opening up and people lined up around the corner?
It should have been canceled.
Come on. I mean, I'm with you. The logic. What are people thinking? It's just...
By the organizers or by the government? Should the city have been able to shut it down?
I just think the people who put on the program should have just said, you know, another time and another place.
Agreed.
You disagree, Ed?
No, I agree. Both LOHUD and the gun show people are making mistakes in this kind of context with what they're doing.
All right, everybody's agreeing too much tonight. Okay, when we come back from the break here, we're going to see if we can get some more conflict here. And I want to remind everybody, if you want to see some conflict or debate, tune in tomorrow. I'm going to be joined by Larry Pratt. He's Executive Director of Gun Owners of America. And we've gotten into it a few times over the years. Trust me, there's a lot of daylight between the two of us, but you'll get his perspective last night. When we come back, debt limit is back. If you thought we could avoid another 11th hour DC showdown, you were delusional. It's going to come right back down to it all over again here. And for what? We're going to tell you what they're fighting about and how the experts here at the panel think this thing's going to end. Stay with us.